All right, we're excited to be joined by Vinney Tolman. Vinny, thanks for stopping by.
Yeah, great to meet you.
Nice to meet you. Your story precedes itself, but for those people who are not familiar with what happened to you, I listened to a podcast about a year and a half ago about your story, very compelling. If you can take us back to your life before you had your experience. What was Vinny doing?
So before my experience, I was really a Renaissance man. I'd worked in construction, worked in computers, worked in TV and film, but mostly construction in the framing trade and general contracting trade. And I'd gotten recently into amateur bodybuilding, and that's right where I was when I had my experience. I was pretty fresh into amateur bodybuilding, about a year into it. Yeah.
Well, I know my son-in-law met my daughter in bodybuilding, so I'm familiar with that, and he was actually selling supplements, and I think your NDE involves supplements.
Yes,
and
yes, sure did.
But he did not sell them to you. I want to
be
quite sure
a little website,
about that.
A little website in Thailand.
But so let's talk about what precipitated this, and it kind of plays off of your bodybuilding story, right?
Well, in the pursuit of bodybuilding, there was a supplement that was just all the craze back then. This was 2003. And the supplement, it allowed you to work out the same muscle group every day. And it was natural. It was not pharmaceutical, it was all natural. But they made different strengths of it. What we didn't know is the strength you could buy in the United States was the weakest strength. And the strength pretty much everywhere else was a concentrated formula. So we ordered some. We ordered some from the local GNC. We ordered it from a vitamin company. We couldn't get it. It was on about like a 7-month back order. And so we decided to go online to where you just order it and they ship it. And sure enough, we get this bottle. We open up the bottle cap and smell. It's a liquid supplement. And we could tell right away it smelled just like the American stuff. So me and my buddy, both took a little bottle cap worth, that was all. But what we didn't know is the stuff we had bought online was 20 times stronger.
Oh my gosh.
So it was like taking 20 bottle caps instead of just one. Yeah.
What was the catalyst in the supplement? Was it like an adrenaline-like substance?
It was, so within our bodies, we have something called gamma hydroxybutyrate, which this was a precursor to that. It would influence the body to create gamma hydroxybutyrate, which allows the muscles to stay relaxed while they heal. And that's what allowed the body to work out those muscle groups every single day.
So you ingest this, you and your partner.
Yeah.
You guys both immediately start feeling the effects.
We did. And the version that we had was called furanone dihydro. So we took this supplement and instantly we felt nauseous, just instantly, yeah.
And then so you head to the restroom and he
stays
at the table and just...
Being that we're 25 and we think that go eat something that'll make everything better.
You went to Dairy Queen.
We went to Dairy Queen. And so we go to that Dairy Queen. I stumble in, I went into the bathroom. He stumbled in and collapsed on the first booth off to the left from the entrance. And right there, he went ahead and he vomited all over the table. And the manager came and saw that, called 911. They hauled him away. Nobody had seen that I had come in right before him. And I was in the bathroom with the door locked. And I had done the same thing, but I was on my back and I was on the ground. And so I had aspirated, yeah.
And then so fortuitously, at least for the sake of this story and the fact that we're talking to you, someone in there had to use the restroom, and
yes.
they had theorized that someone might be in there and might need help.
Well, there was a gentleman that kept going up and trying to open the door, and each time he could hear a phone ringing inside. And he was monitoring that bathroom because he needed to go pretty bad for almost an hour.
Wow.
Finally, after an hour, he said, "Hey, manager, open this up. I think there's somebody that may be in trouble in there." Or that somebody left their phone in there and somehow locked the door. But he did, the manager opened that door and saw this dead body on the ground.
So you're there, they immediately called the paramedics?
They did, they called emergency services. The operator that what they had talked to on the phone, she had coached the manager to speak to his assistant manager for her to feel around, feel for a pulse, that kind of thing. But as soon as she did, she felt the body was cold. She felt it was cold to the touch. And as soon as she said that, the operator said, you know what, secure the room, don't let anybody in there, wait for police or medical to arrive, they'll process everything. And the next one on the scene was another ambulance.
How long did it take for them to arrive?
So it was only minutes, like less than 5 minutes. But the second call to the ambulance was almost an hour. So from the first call to have my buddy hauled away to the second call was almost an hour. Yeah.
So before we get back to how they attended you and brought you back to life, talk about how you started to traverse the dimensions and you looked down at your body and went, what?
Yeah, for me, what I saw is I went from, wow, this room is shaky. It felt like the room was shaking on me or tilting on me. And then all of a sudden, I just went into just a cool, calm darkness right away. And while I was in that almost electrical darkness, then I started to notice that there was something, as far as an image, starting to form in front of me. And to me, it looked like a movie. It really did. It looked like a movie being shot from the ceiling looking down. And it was of this dead body on the ground.
You're wondering, who the hell is that?
And my first thought was, wow, I feel bad for this guy. And then my second thought is I pulled some of my movie background out and I started thinking, why would the director of photography shoot this film from above? That's kind of an odd selection or odd angle. And I was thinking that when I noticed that the manager had opened the bathroom, and I noticed all these other aspects, and I could hear the thoughts of every single person in that restaurant, including the manager, including the customer that wanted to use the restroom. I was hearing everything that everyone was saying. And again, I had this thought, like, why would the director choose to portray it this way? This is
quiet
weird.
On the set, for crying out loud.
Exactly, and it was noisy. Yeah. It was so noisy to the point that one thing, and I don't talk about this very often, but one point is, once they knew there was a dead body in there, the manager of the restaurant, he went around telling everyone, ooh, come look, there's a dead body in here.
Oh my gosh.
And the fry chef that was in the back, the fry cook, I heard him say, I've seen enough death in my life. I don't need to see another one. And he stayed. He was like, no, I'm not leaving the kitchen.
Wow.
And you know, silly things like that, I'm like, why would a director put all of that in a movie?
When did you then become aware, wait a minute, that's me?
So it wasn't until far later. I watched the next ambulance come. I actually watched them haul away my buddy in the first ambulance. I watched the time progress, which to me it seemed like a very long time from my perspective. I watched time progress until the second ambulance got there. When the second ambulance got there, I saw that it was a 3-man crew. So it was two veteran medics with a rookie kind of training in the background of the other two. I could hear his thoughts that, why aren't we trying better for this one? Why aren't we trying harder? He felt like the veteran medics gave up really fast. He felt like they could have tried a lot harder to...
It's like they made an initial judgment that...
And they did, and here's the thing, there's certain protocols that when someone's a certain body temperature, when there's no pulse, you recognize that someone's acceptable as passed or crossed or dead. And that's the case. That was the case with me. They had pronounced me DOA. They tried to do chest compressions. They tried a few other techniques, but not without any avail.
And you're still cognizant of all
that? And I'm
this?
watching it all happen, not knowing it's me. To me, it was like I was watching a movie, you know, and I saw them bag the body. I saw them task the rookie with sitting in the back of the ambulance to watch the body, while the other two veteran medics went around the restaurant and they collected witness statements. And then a police officer arrived and they traded some paperwork with the police officer, and he said, go ahead, you know, take the body to turn it into the medical examiner. And still I had no idea. No idea whatsoever.
What prompted the rookie to check your femoral artery and then to feel that spark?
What happened is, right after they left the scene of this Dairy Queen, it was just about a half block away. From my perspective, the rookie that was sitting in the back of the ambulance, he started to actually glow, where light started to come from him. And when this was happening, I could see that this very strong energy was building in him, and out of nowhere, this really strong voice came over my shoulder, and it said, "This one's not dead." It said it very firmly, very stern, "This one's not dead." And I could tell that the rookie heard it. Just the way his mannerisms were and how he kind of froze once it was said, I could tell he heard it, but then he shrugged it off. I could hear his own thoughts say, "That was just your imagination." But then he went back to his thought process of, why didn't we try with this one? Why didn't we do this? Why didn't we do that? And only another maybe half block after that, that light started to glow even brighter. And with that brighter light, that force came again and said, "This one's not dead." And it was so strong and so loud. I feel like he felt it just as strong as I did. And so he stood up, he opened up the body bag, he started feeling around for a pulse. He didn't feel anything initially. He felt all over the neck and the head, didn't feel anything. He felt under the arm, didn't feel anything. He had to unzip a couple more straps on the body bag, and he went down to the inner leg. And on the inner leg, he went and pushed with a lot of pressure into the femur, towards the femoral artery. And when he made contact with the femur bone, like made contact with it, there was a spark. And it was like a shock, like a charge, a discharge of electricity. And I felt it where I was, and I know he felt it because he jumped. He definitely jumped. So with all of that, he decided, this is it. I'm going to try to resuscitate him. So he opened up that body bag. He got oxygen fed into the lungs. He hooked the body up to a defib, and he charged. First charge, no reaction. Second charge, he got 1 heartbeat. And on the third charge, he got a steady, faint heartbeat, but steady. And one of the miracles of all this is when that heart started, they were just about 500 feet from a trauma center. So they were able to turn and redirect and go directly into that trauma center and hand the body off.
When did you finally make the connection that it was you?
Well, I'm sometimes late to the party, and with this one I was. I still didn't know it was me. To me, I could see that the person was wearing clothes like me. They looked kind of like me, but they didn't look like me. The body in a dead state, it doesn't look like you anymore.
Right, because your spirit's not animated.
Yeah, and to me, it couldn't be me because I was up here watching everything. That just wasn't possible. But I watched as they were transferring the body into the hospital, to the ICU or into the ER. And as they were transferring it from the medic gurney, from the EMTs onto the hospital gurney, it started going into all these seizures. And there was more vomit coming out of it. And as it was doing all that, they strapped the body down, and I felt someone strapping me down. And I remember I looked down because I felt like someone was strapping me where I was, and I looked down and I could see the hospital strap on this arm, right on my left arm. And that's when it was just this huge, like a lightning hitting me, that everything I'd been watching was me. Wow. Everything.
And what was that revelation like?
Horrible. I felt so dumb. I felt like, how could I have been watching it felt like hours. It was probably more like an hour, but it felt like so long. How could I have been watching my own death and not know it was me? How could I be so dumb? And I even had that thought, how could you be so dumb?
Wow.
And as I was having that thought, I started to see every bad thing that I ever did in my life, every bad thing. And I even mean from a little child. I saw the silliest little bad things to the big bad things. Like every bad thing I ever did, I saw it. And as I got to the end of that, it felt like an exhaustion, a release, a letting go of everything bad I'd ever done. And that's when I realized there was this warmth, and it was starting to come over me. And then I started to see every good thing I ever did. And I saw that there was a lot more good that I ever did.
So it was your life review,
It was, yeah. It was like a mini life review, and it was very fast.
Yeah.
But I got through all the good that I ever did. I felt this overwhelming love flowing over me, almost like a fire hose of love flowing over me. And it was coming from behind me. So I turned around to see what is going on. Like, how is all this love just being directed at me? And I turned around and to see this this gentleman standing there, just all in white. He had a long white beard and longish white hair. And his eyes, they felt like they were like reaching in my soul and holding me. And my first thought was, oh, this is God. And to see who this man was, you would have to assume it was God.
But didn't you?
I assumed it was God.
But he said, "No, I'm not."
And
God.
he said, "Yeah." But without using his mouth, he just goes, "No, I'm not God." He goes, "Son, I'm not God."
Yeah.
And then I thought, well, if you're not God, then somehow are you Jesus? You know. Growing up Christian, I thought there was only the option or the other option.
Right. A or B.
And that's when he said, "No, son, I'm not Jesus. I'm
your
here to be your
guide?
guide. I'm here to help you go wherever you want to go." And he did say, I'll help you go wherever you want to go. And he asked me, he motioned back towards my body and said, "Do you want to go back to your body?" And I thought about it for a millisecond. And then I thought, no. I looked down and I saw all that pain. I saw the body, when I looked at it, it was in mid-seizure. There was stuff coming out of the nose and the mouth, and it didn't look good at all.
I'll take
it looked
a pass
horrible.
on that. Yeah.
And I said, nope, I don't want that. I want to go wherever this love is coming from, and that's where I want to go.
And that's when you got the tour of all
And that's
the
when I got
other
the
realms
tour. Yeah,
of heaven?
he explained that the love that where it was coming from was from my home, and that was his home as well, and that he could take me home. So I said, let's do it. Let's go home.
Well, let's talk about that, because I've never heard in anyone else's account, and perhaps there is, because I haven't listened to every NDE podcast or account, but you said when you went to, let's say, one of these realms, it was articulated to you either telepathically or however it was communicated, that this is where anger is released. Like I think you were talking about an Italian man was mad at his son dying, and this was a place for people, for want of a better term, like a purgatory, to release this so they wouldn't be burdened by the.
And what it wasn't like a purgatory that we learn about in religion. It was more of a spiritual rehabilitation, somewhere where you could lovingly release and let go of what was holding you back from your own self. And that was just outside of the heavenly realm. Yeah, there was a gate of those orbs or those pearls that you would end up just kind of lumping into if there was something that was preventing you from that progress.
So it was like a way station for people?
Yeah, it was like a way station. And heaven itself is a way station. Yeah. It's an in-between place. It's not a final destination. It's a place where we go get done what we want done, and then we get to either stay there if we want or move to other spaces if we want to.
So what other tours did you go on when you were there?
Well, the primary was the journey just to get to heaven. I had a lot of learning I had to do. I thought, being raised Christian and being raised fundamental, I thought for sure I had like the backdoor pass to get in. And I even said that. I said, you don't need to mess with me. I told my guide, I said, just let me in. Show me where the secret door is. I'll just go in. And he laughed about it and said that he loved that I thought that I could just do that, but it was a little bit more complex, and that I had to raise certain understandings in my consciousness for me to be able to even just get or arrive myself to that high vibrational space of home, of where I came from. And so we worked through that. We started first with authenticity. That was the first thing I had to learn. I thought it was going to be love, but it wasn't. It was authenticity. Authenticity was the most important thing, because I couldn't grow, I couldn't learn, I couldn't truly progress until I could know who I really was. So authenticity was paramount above anything in the process. But he taught me quite a bit. He taught me many principles. A few of them that really stuck out to me was specifically with prejudice. I felt I didn't have any prejudice, and he said, yeah, you've done really good about not being prejudiced. But he asked me, he said, well, how do you feel about prejudiced people? And I said, well, I'll tell you about prejudiced people.
Yeah, I'm prejudiced against prejudiced people.
And that's what it was. And that's what it was. He showed me a little effigy of me, and how in my hating prejudiced people, I myself had become prejudiced. I had joined the team of prejudice. because I myself hated prejudiced people. And I couldn't never be a solution to a problem that I was the problem. And he showed me that I would have to use unconditional love, even of prejudiced people. And that, in a way, is the only solution to help that type of thought.
So you almost had to approach it in a neutral framework as opposed to identifying with it.
Aggressively loving, that's what I had to do.
Yeah.
I had to go from an aggressively loving stance
To everyone.
To everyone, no
Yeah.
matter prejudice, not prejudice, lifestyle, beliefs, whatever. I had to love everybody. And that was another one they taught me, is that all of us are different fingers on the Creator's hands. And that for me to hate, hurt, or harm another finger is only to hate, hurt, or harm myself.
Interesting.
And that was a big one for me. I didn't, I grew up playing rugby and fighting quite a bit, getting a couple of scraps here and there. And I didn't realize that the whole time I was fighting myself, the whole time.
Interesting. And I think we all go through that, and that's why stories like this that are so transcendent, but we have the benefit of having you back here to all learn, because this is a schoolroom. This is,
life
we're here to learn.
Has always been a classroom and never been a courtroom.
And that's an interesting perspective. But when you see, like, I have daughters 31 and 29. My 29-year-old's an empath. She's the sweetest thing in the world. Dad, I look out and I look, these people hate those people, these people hate those people. How can I reconcile that God is good? I'm not that I don't want to believe it, but I see all this manifestation of illness and sadness and strife and war. How do you answer that question?
So I answer it this way. Do you see if a car is a good car by looking at the bottom of its tires? No, you see a car for its worth, its value by what it offers as transportation, as a mode of transportation, the quality of transportation. You don't only look at the bottom of the tires, but yet the lowest aspect of that car is where the rubber meets the road. That's the bottom of the tire. That's the dirtiest, gross part, worst part of a car. And that's kind of like us. We don't judge our society. We don't judge life by the worst of us. Go and look at the whole. Look at the beauty. And it's really hard to find the beauty that this world offers, because the news and TV, they focus so much on the underside of the car. That's all they look at. They never look at the good stuff. And society and this earth has amazingly beautiful people everywhere. Everywhere you go, there's people that want to have family and have love and have a home to live in, a place to express that love, a way to express that love. Mm-hmm. And you'd never go on the news and read about that or hear about that every day.
They say it wouldn't sell.
No, it doesn't sell. Fear sells.
Yeah.
So fear is all we see. All we're doing is tire inspecting all the time.
Interesting. I had the opportunity to go to Sri Lanka for a work assignment probably 10 years ago. Didn't know much about the culture, didn't know much about the people. People were wonderful. People are people. Their fathers and mothers, they struggle and not struggle. They have their own spiritual warfare that's going on, depending on how they identify, whether they're Hindi or not Hindi. So I think you're absolutely right. I think the challenge, though, is to clearly, when you see that in your view, set up an antidote prior to seeing it, right?
Well, what you have to do is realize that the universe is just you in verse. So if you're having a problem with the universe, that's a you problem.
That's a reflection.
That's a reflection. So the universe is just you inside out. So if you're not seeing what you like, look somewhere else. And
turn the channel off.
Turn the channel. Yeah, exactly. Like if you look for struggle, obstacle, and problem, you will find struggle, obstacle, and problem. If you look for answers, solutions, love, eternity, you'll find all of those things.
I think that's
you find what you seek. That's what this universe is.
And you don't have
about.
to have a near-death experience
No.
to have that kind of a formula, do you? I want to circle back to the life review, because from my purview and studying thousands of these cases and reading volumes of accounts, to me, I think that for the people who haven't had what you've had, the visceral look at the other side and what is, as opposed to what we toil in daily that we just talked about, the life review is so important, because like you talked about earlier, I was bad and I did all these things, and you viscerally felt how you made me feel when you ridiculed me in second grade about having bad pants,
Yep.
right?
And here's what's funny about those life reviews. You actually feel it from both sides.
Yeah.
So if I was bullying someone, I felt what they felt. And not only did I feel that, I felt what they did to their little sister, little brother, after I did that to them. So I felt multiple generations,
The domino
in the
effect.
negative and the positive, both.
Yeah.
There was people that I taught English in Southeast Asia for a couple of years, and I helped a guy who was homeless at the time get to a point where he had a job, had a schooling, all of this. I had no idea I was doing all of that, and I got to see that. But I didn't just see that. I saw what he did from there and what that did for him, all the doors, and it's hard for the brain to comprehend that you could process all this, but it happened in seconds. You were allowed to see it from both sides, both good and bad, and there was no hiding. We lie to ourselves a lot in this life, but there was no way to do that anymore. I had to be authentic in my review. I had to be authentic. I had to see what my life was really about. And, in Egyptology, they call that the weighing of the soul. And there's no way to confuse that system. There's no way to trick that system. You can't go get legal counsel for your life review. It won't work. Yeah.
Well, and what I like, and I think you touched on it a little bit, is the fact that oftentimes what we characterize as the most benign interactions
Yes.
are the most powerful, right?
Yeah. A simple, kind gesture when someone's having the roughest day of their life. That flips them back over to being, it's going to be okay. And we have no idea. When we go around this world and we see people treating each other badly, we need to see beyond the actions of the individual. It's not an individual treating someone badly. It's an individual that's frustrated with their own problems, and they feel like they have to slough some of those problems onto someone else. That's what's really going on.
And you're right. And so many of us have been conditioned by modeling, however we were environmentally raised,
Yeah.
by our well-intentioned parents who did the best they could with what they had to work with, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And we all do that. But I think to be that circumspect about life is oftentimes challenging.
It
We
is
can sit
really
here and
challenging,
we
yeah.
can talk here in platitudes and talk about what should be, but when you get out there and then somebody cuts you off and you react and
I'm not perfect at it, but I'll tell you what I do now is when somebody cuts me off, I say to myself, look at me over there. Look how I'm in
Right.
such a rush. I'm in such a mess of problems that I feel like I have to bully someone else on the road. Isn't that funny that that's what I think I need to do?
Isn't that interesting?
And when I look at it from that perspective, it's so much easier to give grace because we want grace.
But you prepared for it. See,
But I prepared for it. I made
think
the choice
key-
beforehand.
I think
Yeah.
that's the key. So you set your day up to that's what your philosophy is going to be,
Yeah.
right? So you default to that, because what we do is we act on fear, and we react on fear and we act on truth. So
And it depends on the
You know?
state we're in too. If we're in a fearful state, we're going to react with fear.
yeah,
But if we're in a loving state, no matter what's going on, now a lot of these NDEers, they're not afraid to die.
right.
That's about the thing that people fear most is death. So if you're not afraid to die, then you can change your state of being easily. You're not going to be run around letting others manipulate you, not necessarily. So you can be in a different state, but all of us can do that by just choosing.
Well, and you bring up a good point, because I think so much, well, if there's 380 to 1.2 billion people in the world who have encountered an STE or an NDE, some type of form, that means there's 5.8 billion that haven't. So what kind of a primer, you having a glimpse of the other side and others like you and your cadre of people who have had these remarkable experiences, what can we offer up as a primer to those people to live more joyously? Can you condense it into a 30-second pitch?
I'd say this, for as many people there are on planet Earth, there are fractals of light, fractals of the Creator. And if we can see it that way and fully understand that, allow ourselves to fully comprehend that every single being around us is a fractal, a piece of the Creator, it allows us to take life from a different place, take life from a different stance.
I think that's a great, and Anita Morjani, who spoke earlier, has a great metaphor in her book, Dying to Be Me, about a tapestry that's incredibly ornate. But if you
Yes.
get right here in front of it, you only see the 8 threads that are in front of you. But if you take 15 paces back, you see how we're all inextricably linked to one another.
We are.
And that goes back to your life review. So what I've tried to do with my life now is with my wife, when we're watching TV or we get upset about the news or we do something, or we diminish or disparage somebody unwittingly, life review. It's going to be in your life review. So we kind of diffuse the situation that way. That's kind of like when you were saying, oh, look at me do that. Vinny's mad. He's cutting people off.
Yeah.
Or the
Or
metaphorical.
if I see somebody real upset about something and they're just being mean to people, I'll go over to them and say, let me have it, give it to me. And I visualize myself as being the top of a garbage can, but at the bottom it's cut out open. And I let that just flow through, get out of them, and then I tap into that light core that's inside of them and say, hey, you don't need to carry that anymore. Like, we don't need to carry that stuff anymore.
And that's a resonance thing, right? You can almost fine tune them unwittingly, right?
Yep. Love and fear cannot exist in the same space.
Light and dark.
Yeah.
Finally, for people who want more information about what you're doing now, where can they go? What are you doing now?
So I'm a healing practitioner. I'm a life coach. They can find me through my nonprofit called Living God's Light. It's just livinggodslight.com.
Thank you so much, Vinny, for
Yeah,
your time.
thank you.
Pleasure to meet
It's
you.
absolutely my pleasure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
thank you.